Have you ever wondered why we're so obsessed with making monsters? I mean, from majestic dragons to terrifying aliens, we just can't seem to get enough of creatures that don't exist. But our reaction to them is, well, it's complicated. It's this mix of awe, fascination, and sometimes just pure gut-level fear. Today, we're going to walk that tightrope between wonder and terror and dig into the psychology of why some creations feel amazing while others just haunt our nightmares. So let's start on the side of wonder. Just take a look at this incredible piece of art by Rosemary Chalmers. This is from a series where she imagines a future where birds have evolved to go back into the ocean. It's so vibrant, so elegant, and somehow it feels like it could be real, right? This isn't a monster, this is pure imagination, a beautiful what if. And that right there, that brings us to the whole art of designing new life. See, it's not just about doodling cool-looking things. It's a real discipline that kind of blends science and storytelling to create beings that feel like they could actually exist. Okay, so there's actually a name for this field. It's called speculative biology. It's all about playing with those big what-if questions. You know, what if the dinosaurs never died out? What if life evolved on a totally different planet? It's really where the hard rules of science get to play with the total freedom of art. So, what makes these creatures feel so real? It's how Chalmers is mixing and matching familiar anatomy. She's grabbing the head of a bird, the tentacles of an octopus, the body of a manta ray, and she's putting them together in ways that feel new, but still follows some kind of biological logic you can believe in. At the end of the day, it all boils down to one thing: believability. Whether it's for a huge blockbuster movie or just a personal project, the artist wants you to look at their creation and have that tiny little spark in your brain that goes, yeah, I could see that existing somewhere. They're trying to sell you on the fantasy, right? But here's where things get interesting. What happens when that almost real feeling goes south? When something is so close to being believable that the tiny things that are off about it just make your skin crawl. That's when we step out of that world of wonder and fall into something else entirely. And yeah, that's something else. It actually has a name. It's a concept that comes to us from robotics and psychology, and it perfectly explains that deep, creepy feeling of unease. It's called the Uncanny Valley. Okay, so the theory goes like this, and it was first proposed by a roboticist named Masahiro Mori. We're totally fine with robots that look like, robots. But as a robot gets closer and closer to looking human, without quite getting there, our positive feelings suddenly just tank, and we're left with this feeling of revulsion. Some evolutionary psychologists even think this is a survival instinct, a little alarm in our brain that tells us to stay away from things that look like us, but are subtly wrong. It could signal disease or danger or even death. All right, check this out. This is Mori's original graph, and it lays it all out perfectly. That line on the bottom is human likeness, and the one going up is how we feel about it, our familiarity. As a robot gets more human, we like it more, and then bam, see that huge sudden dip? That's the valley. Just before you get to perfect human likeness, our positive feelings totally crash. And look what's sitting at the very bottom. A corpse, a zombie. Things that look human but are just fundamentally, terrifyingly wrong. But you know what's crazy? This idea is way older than robots. Over 100 years ago, Sigmund Freud was already thinking about this exact feeling. He called it das Unheimliche, which literally means the unhomely or unfamiliar. He was totally fascinated by why some scary things are just, well, scary, while others have that unique, unsettling quality we now call uncanny. So what are these specific triggers? What are the little details that push us off that cliff and right into the valley of creepiness? Well, let's take a look at a study by Jordan Bannister that tried to figure that out. So in this study, people were shown a bunch of clips featuring robots, people in masks, and CGI. And the results, they couldn't be clearer. The robotic clips were consistently rated as the most creepy and the most uncanny. They fell deep into that valley. And meet one of the main culprits. This is the Saya robot. It was actually designed to be a friendly, lifelike receptionist, but it ended up being one of the biggest triggers for that uncanny feeling in the entire study. I mean, you can see why, right? It's so close, but just not right. So what was it about Saya that freaked people out? Well, a few things really stood out. These unpredictable, almost twitchy movements that felt totally uncontrolled. Eyes that just stared or didn't blink the right way. That corpse-like feeling that Mori put at the bottom of his graph, it just taps into our primal fear of the dead. And maybe the biggest one of all, ambiguity. Your brain just can't figure out if this thing is alive or if it's an object, and that uncertainty is deeply, deeply unsettling. Now let's put this into perspective. On one side, you've got Saya, which creates revulsion. But then you look at this hyper-realistic CGI from an Activision tech demo. What's the key difference? The CGI is so realistic, its motion is so fluid, that it actually climbs out of the uncanny valley on the other side. It crosses that chasm and becomes this incredible technical achievement that creates amazement instead of fear. And hey, this isn't just about human faces. This is the big dog robot. No face, no eyes. But its movement alone was enough to really disturb people in the study. They said it looked like an animal in pain or like its joints were broken. The physics of how it moves are realistic, but the biology, it's all wrong. And that triggers the exact same uncanny response. So you'd think, for most designers, the uncanny valley is this huge problem, right? Something to avoid at all costs. But for some people, it's the whole point. For horror creators, the uncanny valley isn't a bug, it's a feature. They don't avoid the valley, they live in it. Which brings us to maybe the best example of this I've ever seen. The world of the analog horror series Vita Carnis. That translates from Latin to life of flesh. And trust me, it is a masterclass in how to weaponize the uncanny.
The whole premise is just chillingly simple. A totally new classification of life, the Carnis genus, has just appeared on Earth. And every single creature in this family is made of what looks like living meat and tissue. And they completely defy everything we understand about biology.
And the creatures themselves, oh man, it's pure nightmare fuel. You've got the crawl, which is like this fleshy, veiny ivy that grows over everything. Trimmings, which are these little pest-like meat creatures. A massive meat snake, the predatory harvester, and maybe the most terrifying of all, the mimic. It's a creature that tries to imitate human forms to lure in its prey. Almost human, but not quite. Sound familiar? The series uses this found footage style to make it feel terrifyingly real. Listen to this description of a mimic attack from the lore. The person frantically runs into their closet. The mimic's arm appears, it wraps itself on the door. As the head of the mimic peeks in, then the mimic pounces. It plays on our deepest fears of a home invasion, but twists it through this totally uncanny biological lens. And just when you think it can't get any creepier, here's the final twist. The reason these creatures are so uncanny is because they're not from our evolution. The lore reveals that they're actually biological tools created by some powerful alien entity. And their whole purpose is to change Earth and harvest humanity. They are fundamentally wrong because they were designed that way. So you see, from the beautiful, imaginative biology of Rosemary Chalmers, all the way to the pure, weaponized horror of Vita Carnis, the creatures we design are really just a mirror. They reflect our hopes for what life could be, but they also reflect our deepest anxieties about death, disease, and the unknown. They show us what we aspire to and what we're terrified of becoming. So it makes you think, doesn't it? What do the creatures you dream up say about you?